This is my first video update coming to you from Nicosia, Cyprus. On this Friday morning, let's talk about some news. And in this video, I want to talk about Sweden, Hungary, Borrell, and we'll do a clown world as well. We'll do a clown world with Ursula van der Crazy. But first, let's begin with the elections in Sweden. And we have the official results of those elections, and we have a change in government. This is big, big news. The Social Democrat government is now, and their coalition is now going to be replaced by a moderate conservative coalition. Moderates along with the Sweden Democrats, and they have won a majority, and it's now their turn to form a government. This is what, she was incumbent prime minister. Now she's outgoing prime minister, Magdalena Andersson, had to say, quote, in parliament, they have a 1 or 2 seat advantage. Sweden's first woman prime minister, Andersson, told a press conference, it's a thin majority, but it's a majority. And she did indeed concede defeat on Wednesday. And that is it. Let's see, with just a handful of votes remaining to be counted, 4 days after Sunday's close call vote, the right-wing bloc is on track to win 176 seats to the left wing's 173, according to the country's election authority, as reported by Reuters. Quote, I will now start the work of forming a new government that can get things done, a government for all of Sweden and all citizens, Christian told reporters. His party won 19.1% of the vote, narrowly edged out by coalition partner, the Sweden Democrats, which are set to take 20.6% of the votes. That is Atkinson's party, the Sweden Democrats. I'm not sure if this is true, but I've heard that the Sweden Democrats, as you have this coalition that was put together, the Sweden Democrats have stated that if this coalition does win the elections, they will not hold any ministerial positions. They will not have any ministers in the government. I'm not sure if that is true or not, but I think that's an interesting compromise. I guess that's what was needed in order to put together this conservative right coalition. Now, I don't think that the foreign policy will change much with regards to Sweden, i.e. Ukraine, EU, well, for the most part, EU. Ukraine, I don't think it'll change at all, and NATO. I'm actually curious to see what the policy will be vis-a-vis NATO. I'm not expecting so much of the foreign policy to change, but I don't think this election was about foreign policy. This election was definitely about the domestic issues and somehow stopping the domestic social implosion of Sweden, which we have seen at the hands of the Social Democrats over the past 8 years that they've been in power. So big news coming out of Sweden. I'm not sure if you would say that this change in government is part of the Elensky curse, but you know what? I'm going to say yes. Why not? You had a government that was super pro-EU, super gung-ho about the war in Ukraine, and obviously a government that has taken Sweden one step closer into full NATO membership. The only thing that's stopping Sweden right now appears to be Turkey and Erdogan, but I would say that this is without a doubt a neoliberal, globalist, pro-Elensky, uber pro-Elensky government. And so I say that Sweden is the latest government to have fallen victim to the Elensky curse. And that means that we have Bulgaria. The Bulgarian government fell to the Elensky curse. And by the way, Bulgaria has elections on October 2nd, and it looks like you're going to get a pretty, I was going to say a big change, but it looks like you're going to come back with the old is coming back to be in government. In other words, it looks like the Borisov, the government that was previously in power before they got replaced, it looks like they're going to win the elections. It might be a coalition with other governments, but definitely you're going to have a government in Bulgaria if the numbers hold, which is less pro-EU and less antagonistic towards Russia. I'm not saying they're not going to be pro-EU. I'm not saying that you're not going to have a government that is riddled with corruption or globalism, but it looks like you're going to have a government in Bulgaria and a coalition in Bulgaria that's just not as crazy about the EU that the previous government was, and you're going to have a government that is going to be less antagonistic towards Russia. And even, those small percentages of moderation, it makes a difference. So you have the Bulgarian government, which fell to the Elensky curse. You had Macron and his parliament defeat, which fell to the Elensky curse. What other? Now you have Sweden. Let's chalk up Sweden to the Elensky curse. I know I'm missing someone. I'm missing a government that fell victim to the Elensky curse, and I can't. Boris Johnson, of course. But I mean, talk about the Elensky curse working overtime. You get rid of Boris Johnson and you get an even worse person in Liz Truss. So it looks like the Elensky curse is gonna strike the UK twice. One in Boris Johnson and once in Liz Truss. But either way, the UK, Boris Johnson, of course, you're talking about the number one confidant and champion of Elensky, the mentor of Elensky, the man that spoiled the peace process, the man that thwarted a ceasefire not once, not twice, but probably 3 times. He made trips to Kiev in order to prevent some sort of peace agreement between Ukraine and Russia. But Sweden, let's say that Sweden is the latest country to fall to the Elensky curse. And I just want to say that in the case of Bulgaria and Sweden, even if you get a government that is even 5%, say they're 95% pro-globalism, EU, neoliberal, whatever. I'm not saying this government of Sweden is going to be like that. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying even if you get that, when it comes to the cult of the European Union, when it comes to the EU ideology, that ideology demands 100% compliance. Even a 5% deviation freaks out the kleptocrats in Brussels. And when they see a government that's not 100% on board with their cult ideology, religion, then they look to tear apart that government. You saw it happen in Austria, where you had someone like Kurz, he was part of the club, but every now and then, he would stir up trouble in Brussels. Every now and then, he would vote against the globalist neoliberal agenda, and they got rid of him. Look at what they did in Czech Republic with Babiš. They cobbled together a coalition of everybody. They put together the left and the right and the communists with the far radical right, and they put together this EU umbrella coalition to defeat Babiš, because Babiš, I'm not saying he was anti-EU or anti-globalist, but every now and then he would dissent from the EU dogma. So they got rid of him, and you're going to see the EU closely monitor the Swedish government. They're going to closely monitor perhaps the new government in Bulgaria, and they're going to demand 100% compliance. And if they don't comply 100%, then that the globalists and the EU kleptocrats are going to look to tear apart those coalitions and those governments. The EU always demands 100% compliance. This is a religion where you cannot stray from dogma, from practice. You have to be 100% faithful to the agenda. And since we're talking about governments that are not 100% faithful to the agenda, we have Hungary. Case in point, Hungary. What is happening there is that the EU continues their assault on the government of Viktor Orban. It has gotten to the point now that the European Union has voted to brand, to categorize the Hungarian government as anti-democracy. They're actually calling it an electoral autocracy. The European Parliament voted on Thursday to brand Hungary an electoral autocracy. The symbolic declaration comes as the rift between Budapest and Brussels widens, with the EU accusing Hungary of corruption and Prime Minister Viktor Orban of breaking with the bloc on immigration and anti-Russian sanctions. In a 433 to 123 vote, the parliament agreed to no longer consider Hungary a democracy and instead to label it a hybrid regime of electoral autocracy. Hungary countered the report and the vote, because this was based on a report supposedly that the kleptocrats in Brussels put together, which says that the Orban government has restricted rights for migrants, minorities, LGBTQ, and other stuff, support of Russia, all of these things. And so they voted that Hungary was an electoral autocracy. But Hungary countered with this election and this report, and they said it is based on subjective opinions and politically biased statements and is yet another attempt by the federalist European political parties to attack Hungary and its Christian democratic conservative government. Now, this is more than a report. This is more than being symbolic. What this does is that it gives Vander Crazy and her crew, her gang, it gives them the justification to hold back EU funds to Hungary, to continue to try and push for some sort of type of EU sanctioning of Hungary, and just stuff like this. Basically holding back money from the Hungarian government and the Hungarian people, and then trying to put some sort of who knows? Maybe they'll put some types of restrictions or sanctions, or God knows what they're going to cook up in order to. Inevitably, in order to try and get the Hungarian people to turn on their government. That's basically what they would like to do. They would like to have the Hungarian people suffer in order for the Hungarian people to try and turn on their government. And once again, the EU always falls back on this type of regime change fantasy that they have. Starve the people of funds, try to make the Hungarian people poorer and angry and upset with their government, and then you can try to get some sort of change in Hungary, some sort of regime change. But this is not a symbolic report. This is just laying the groundwork for Vander Crazy to impose more restrictions and attack Hungary. That's basically what it's about. And this is just, once again, this is the EU lashing out at a government that refuses to comply with their political dogma and their social dogma. That's it. This is case in point. This is case in point of the EU striking out at a government that wants to exercise some sort of degree of sovereignty. And it's just really funny that they brand Hungary as they accuse Hungary of being corrupt, and they accuse Hungary of not being democratic. The European Union, an institution that is not based on democracy, that is run and ruled by a bunch of people who were not elected by anybody in any citizens of the EU. These are appointed offices, appointed officials, that they're the ones that say Hungary is not democratic. Ursula von der Crazy, a person that has never won an election in her life. I don't think she's ever run for office. I may be wrong there, but you're talking about a bunch of appointed bureaucrats, globalist bureaucrats that are saying Orban's government is not a democracy. And then they talk about corruption. Oh boy. The European Union. Yeah, okay. One of the most corrupt institutions in the world is talking about Hungarian corruption. This is a European Union that is sending tens of billions of euros to the most corrupt country in Europe and one of the most corrupt countries in the world, Ukraine. And you're going to talk about corruption with Hungary. You're sending tens of billions of euros to Ukraine, and you're going to talk about Hungarian corruption. You have Christine Lagarde heading the ECB. Christine Lagarde. And you're going to talk about corruption for Hungary. I mean, it's just an absolute farce. It's an absolute joke. But we all know their game plan. They want regime change in Hungary. They want regime change, and they're going to start holding back funds and money, and they're going to probably start to cook up some sort of sanctions or something. They'll figure out something. But, you know, whatever they did to Russia on a smaller scale, they're going to look to do to their own member state. So, since we're speaking about the European Union, Josep Borrell and corruption, the EU and corruption, Josep Borrell, the type of foreign minister for the EU, he explained the utility of the media hype with regards to the Kharkov counteroffensive. And he kind of blurted out why it was so important for Elensky to claim victory in this Kharkov counteroffensive, where 10,000 Ukraine troops managed to take over 3,000 square kilometers of undefended, empty territory, pretty much. I mean, you know, they just kind of rolled in there and there was no one there. But this was the great victory, right, over Russia. The Ukraine military taking over undefended territory. But the reason it was so important to hype this up as a great victory for Ukraine and a massive defeat for Russia and Putin, well, it's because of the EU's need to string their citizens along just a little bit longer, so the corruption and the grift can last a bit longer. So Borrell, he just came out and he said, this is what he said. He said, there is a temptation to abandon Ukraine in part of European society. This is what he told El Mundo newspaper in an interview published on Thursday. People want to end the war because they cannot bear the consequences, the costs. People want to end the war because they cannot bear the consequences and the costs. We have to combat that mentality. The offensive on the northeastern front helps with that. You see? That is the goal there. First of all, when he says people, he means that all of us, you and me, all of us, we're going to suffer in Europe. They're not going to suffer, but we're going to suffer. We're going to get poorer. We're not going to have heat. we're going to suffer at the we're going to suffer due to the price increases and all of these things, the energy crisis. That's what he means when he says people. Yes, we're going to suffer, not them. They're going to be fine. They're going to prosper, actually. But he says that we have to keep this thing going. We have to change people's mentality. We have to combat the mentality. You're thinking wrong. Stop thinking for yourself. Stop thinking like an independent, sovereign, free individual. We have to combat that mentality. Get in line, sheep. Get in line, get in line and just do as we tell you and think as we tell you and don't question anything. Don't question the narrative. So we have to combat that mentality. And the offensive in the Northeast, the Kharkov offensive, well, that's proof that all the billions that we've been sending, all the money, all the support, all the weapons, you see, that's proof that Elensky is winning and our policy is working. So our policy is really paying dividends, and we got to tell people of the EU, stop complaining. Stop complaining about heat and the price of food and inflation. Elensky's winning. Stop complaining. You see the Ukraine military. They capture 3,000 square kilometers or 6,000 square kilometers of undefended territory. They're winning. Our plan is working. That's it. Borrell just said it. That's why the Kharkov counteroffensive, one of the reasons it was so important to hype it up as this massive victory and this terrible defeat was with Russia is because the EU, they need to keep this thing going, and they need to convince their citizens not to protest, not to get out onto the streets, not to vote for alternative governments, for governments that don't toe the EU line. That's one of many reasons why the Kharkov counteroffensive was so desperately needed. And Borrell, he just comes out and says it. You know, it's like this whole situation, what the EU is doing is akin to, let me see, it's like being in a relationship or having a business partner that you want to get rid of, right? You want to get rid of this other person or this partner, but that partner keeps on telling you, just give me another week or two, just give me a little bit more time, and I'm going to get my act together, or we're going to make this business, really explode. I'll get my act together. Just give me another week, and then you're like, okay, I'll give you another week before I go my own way, and then that person's like, no, just give me another 2 more weeks. Another 2 more weeks, you're like, all right. And then you're thinking, okay, now I'm going to get rid of this person. And that person convinces you again, just give me a little bit more time. And then one day you wake up and your bank account has been cleared out. Everything's been taken from you. And that person is long gone. That is exactly what the EU is doing to their citizens. That is exactly what they're doing. There are a lot of people in the European Union. They know what's going on. There's a lot of people in the world. They know that this is about corruption and this is all a scam. But the EU, what they're doing is Borrell, what he's saying is just give us another month. Okay, we'll give you another month. And then they're going to cook up another counteroffensive. You'll see in about a month, when the people start getting restless again, they'll cook up another PR media victory, another spin, and they'll say, look, you see? Just give us another month. Until one day the collapse happens. And when the collapse happens, all these guys are laughing all the way to the bank. Something like that. Anyway, I will leave it there, and we'll do a clown world. And since we're talking about the EU, the clown world is from Ursula van der Crazy. And talk about trying to BS the citizens. Man, does Ursula, she takes the cake for chief BSer. So she was giving the speech the other day, her State of the Union, wearing her blue and gold getup, her blue and gold costume. And that just shows you how concerned they are with the optics, doesn't it? The fact that they make them dress up in these clown outfits. It just goes to show all of this is about PR and manipulation. All about manipulating you. Anyway, she gave a speech, and she starts peddling the line that Russia is taking chips from dishwashers, and Russia is losing, and Putin is losing, and then she comes up with the best line. I love it at the end where she says, Russia's economy is in tatters. It is in tatters. Take a look.
Russian military is taking chips from dishwashers and refrigerators to fix their military hardware because there are no semiconductors anymore. Russia's industry is in tatters.
All right, so that is the clown world. It is in tatters. We're winning because Russia is taking microchips from dishwashers, and they're using those microchips in order to fund their war machine. And their economy is in tatters. Anyway, that's the video, everybody. That's a fun one. That is the clown world, theduran.locals.com. And check out Alexandra's channel. Check out the Duran's channel. And what else? Rumble, ODYSEE, BitChute, and Telegram. Take care.